Previously on StillerBros at the movies.
They tried to cancel James Gunn. It didn't work because there was no reason to do it.
But what did we get out of it? We got this amazing movie.
And we got another amazing movie coming up the pipe.
So sorry, right-wing weirdo. Yeah, you gave us 2 awesome movies.
And an awesome TV show. And an awesome holiday special.
So I thank you, but I don't want to give you the credit.
Which is coming, or it's going. And obviously, any kind of foreshadowing into what we're probably going to be getting when James Gunn's The Superman movie comes out in 2 years. Die mad, Snyder Cult.
I'm done. And now...
If I go crazy, then will you still call me Superman? If I'm alive and well, will you still be there holding my hand? I'll be by my side with my superhuman might. Kryptonite. Welcome back to StillerBros at the movies, where today, we have waited for this day. And as you can tell, I'm good to go. So am I, but I might be wearing the wrong shirt. Superman 2025. Yes. So, this has been kind of a long time coming. It has been 12 years since the last standalone Superman movie has come to theaters. And it's been a rather chaotic process getting to the point where anyone would even feel like they need to make a Superman movie. So, 12 years ago, Man of Steel hit theaters, and despite some rocky reception with critics and viewers, it did make a pretty good amount of money. So, obviously, a sequel was into development. However, they kind of pushed that aside to turn it into Batman v Superman, which ended up becoming one of the most discussed in the wrong way superhero movies of the last decade. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into how we got from there to here. We're not going to go into it because we don't have that kind of time. So if you really want to go into it and you have like 9-ish hours to kill, we recommend Movie Bob's series, The Martha Box, where you can go into like everything that went on over the course of the 10-year period between Man of Steel coming out and DC basically turning into what it is now. So 3 years ago, James Gunn was officially announced with his producing partner Peter Safran to be the heads of DC's new film division, DC Studios, which meant that they were changing up what is going on in the DC universe as it stands. The DC Comics movie universe has had a bit of ups and downs in the 12 years since Man of Steel came around. Like, obviously, they had a rocky start with Man of Steel getting mixed to bad reception, Batman v Superman getting worse reception, Suicide Squad being the absolute worst, and then suddenly things start to get a little bit better. Aquaman seemed to be a joke that understood it was a joke. Wonder Woman seemed to be the perfect, ideal version of what it is. Shazam was great, and then slowly but surely things started to kind of fall into routines that it probably shouldn't have fallen into while it was going on. And while all this was going on in 2018, James Gunn, after being fired off of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was bullshit, we've covered this before, it's in the card right now, but basically, James Gunn was approached in 2018 after all that debacle to basically be brought on to do a DC movie. And one of the movies that he was offered was the long gestating Man of Steel 2. Now, he pushed that aside and he did the Suicide Squad because he didn't have a way in for Superman. But once him and Peter Safran were brought on as CEOs of DC Studios, he found a way in. And so, Superman, the long-awaited new version of one of the world's greatest heroes. And somehow, it's controversial. Somehow a movie that has built its entire promotional campaign about being a movie about hope and change and just doing the right thing, even when it seems like everyone is against you, is somehow controversial because a lot of people who do not understand how things work are just angry. And whether it be the Zack Snyder cult of people who insist that because of the nature of which Zack Snyder was taken off of his work in Justice League, that they need to force him basically to really like that much. And the people who just are listening to James Gunn say that Superman is an immigrant, not only is he an immigrant, but he is an immigrant who is so built on the back of his adopted home planet that he takes their values to mean that he needs to be a good person. People on the wrong side of a lot of issues are just mad.
And those people can sit and spin.
But the thing is, this movie seems to be going along the right track. Because if there's anything we know about James Gunn, it's that he knows character. He knows how to write character. James Gunn is nothing if not one of the most incredible writers in the superhero genre of movies right now.
Yeah, and we have an incredible cast behind him, starting with our brand new Superman, David Corenswet,
who, like Brandon Routh and Henry Cavill before him, has done a few things, but nothing huge yet.
And obviously looming in the shadow of what Christopher Reeve did almost 50 years ago is nothing short of daunting.
Yep. And then we got our new Lois Lane, the marvelous Miss Maisel herself, Rachel Brosnahan.
And along for the ride, we also have the likes of Beck Bennett, Nathan Fillion, Isabella Merced, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor.
But the whole thing is just, this is otherwise a pretty stacked cast. But Superman obviously needs to be a guy that we don't particularly recognize, because otherwise you just see the actor and not the looming presence that is the Man of Steel himself.
Yeah, but of course we also need to quickly bring up the real star of the show, one Crypto, the super dog.
So James Gunn got himself a dog. His name is Uzo, and when he got his dog, he saw that a lot of chaos was brought into his house, and apparently that was his into Superman.
Yes.
Just deciding how would a dog like this with superpowers be, and so Crypto the super dog became this, and I just love that he's fluffy.
Yes, we have loved everything we've seen of Crypto. He is just the best boy.
And we've loved everything we've seen of this new view of the DC universe. Like, this isn't technically the first thing in the DC universe. Technically, a bunch of other stuff that came before. We've said multiple times, the DC universe is starting now. This DC universe is starting now. It's starting now. It's starting now. Multiple times through multiple videos over the course of the last, 4 years. But, of course, the fact is that this is technically the start of, in movies at least. We've already gotten Creature Commandos, and technically some parts of the Suicide Squad are still canon. According to James Gunn, it's like a half-remembered memory.
Yeah, but also one thing that kind of gets us excited about this movie is that it's not an origin story, so this kind of feels like what they've been doing in the animated world of DC for a while, which if you've checked out our Letterboxd, and if you haven't checked out our Letterboxd, description, Letterboxd, you'll see that we've been watching a lot of animated DC movies lately.
Yeah, because a bunch of them dropped on YouTube, and it's like, well, while they're here.
So we've been kind of prepping for this movie by watching a bunch of those, and one thing that DC animated movies have been doing is that kind of telling a bunch of different stories, but kind of in a way where the story's already started. So
trust that their audience has already seen some version of these characters' origin stories in some way.
Yeah, so we're just kind of jumping into where this particular story starts.
Which is also why those movies tend to have similar casts.
Yeah.
But it's also just a case of, this movie feels very much like James Gunn understands, look, these are iconic characters. If you are going to see these movies in theaters, you'll pretty much already know who Superman is. You probably have a good idea of who Hawkgirl is. If a guy with a Green Lantern symbol on his chest shows up, you probably don't know who he is, but you've got a good idea of what he can do.
And basically, we're not going to have to worry about seeing Krypton blow up, or Batman's parents gets wasted, or really anything of that nature. We're going to just jump into the stories.
And that's the best part of this. is this going to be the best superhero movie since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2? Probably, or probably not. I don't know. People have been saying that on and off for years, for every movie since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, to the point that it's getting tiring. That movie is 21 years old at this point, so it's kind of weird that people are still acting like they haven't saturated the market so deep with superhero movies that we're having arguments over whether or not superhero movie fatigue is actually a thing. But I am very much in the camp of this movie is just going to be so good, and I'm so happy to be able to see it, and I'm so happy that I'm going to be able to actually avoid social media spoilers for the next 45 minutes, because that's when our screening starts.
Yes.
So, what else is there? The crew is also filled with a bunch of James Gunn regulars, including his composer, John Murphy, who is playing John Williams' iconic score for Superman. How on earth do you top that iconic theme? You can try, but sometimes you'll end up just kind of doing what Hans Zimmer did, where it's like, yeah, it's fine, but if you put a gun to my head now, I couldn't even hum it.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, da 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 da. But all that to say, Superman looks like it's going to be a fun ride, if nothing else. And honestly, I'm probably a little biased on it. I mean, for God's sakes, this has been my phone lock screen for the last 8 months.
Yeah.
What else is there to say? Let's get into it. See you after the jump. It was everything I wanted and more.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Superman has been a staple of so many people's lives for the last 80 years. It's impossible to really get into how deep into American or even just world culture he is. So having a movie like this that is able to merge the two different worlds of Superman, the old school aesthetic of the 1978 Superman movie, the new school aesthetic of just the superhero movies that have come out over the last 20 years. It's just everything I wanted it to be.
It's finally, after 50 years, a movie that can be held up alongside the 1978 Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve version. And it just is such an emotional overload to see Superman done right for the first time in a long time.
Superman has certainly been done multiple ways. Some good, like Superman the Animated Series, My Adventures with Superman, various installments in the DC direct-to-video animated movie markets, and then done not so well, like Superman Returns, Batman v Superman, and other installments in the DC direct-to-video animated movie franchise.
The thing that makes this so different is it's Superman at his peak core values. It is the truth, justice, and freedom for all Superman.
And I think a big part of that is the fact that James Gunn wasn't afraid to get there. So many screenwriters over the years have said, Superman's boring, he's perfect, how do you tell a story about a perfect character? But the thing is, when Superman is told from the perspective of a writer who's not afraid to let Superman be flawed, let Superman be this guy who has to deal with everything that a normal person has to deal with, and then on top of everything else, have to deal with all those things that a person like Superman would have to deal with. The backlash, the people who are worried for who he is. That's something that Zack Snyder really missed out on, because Zack Snyder tried. I'm going to give him all the credit in the world. He wanted to do something. But the problem was he forgot to make his Superman human. He made that abundantly clear by the fact that throughout the majority of Man of Steel, he wasn't referred to as Clark Kent. he was referred to as Superman. And that's kind of the problem when the whole point of Superman is that he is one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe, and yet he chooses to be Clark Kent. He chooses to be this meek little wimp who gets pushed around at his job by guys who he could, no doubt, show up in any physical or mental challenge. And through it all, he doesn't, because deep down he's a good person.
Yeah.
David Corenswet is fantastic as Superman and Clark Kent. He embodies all of the things that make Superman great.
And then Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane is great. And Nicholas Hoult playing sort of a different version of Lex than we previously saw. But he's still Lex. And in a way, he's also it was an oddly timely portrayal of Lex, as he is clearly somewhat based off of a certain megalomaniacal billionaire who...
Let's just say it's kind of weird that he didn't name one of his evil plans after a long, out-of-date meme.
Yeah.
But the entire movie became this incredibly timely thing. So much so that you probably can't believe that this movie was written in 2022.
Yeah.
And it's just this thing where they understand the characters in a way that it feels like we haven't gotten anything like this in a long time.
And the other characters in this movie, the other metahuman superhero people in this movie, help to branch out the new world we're set in.
The fact that we are introduced right off the bat, metahumans have been a thing for as long as this world has basically had a common existence, and it's just a kind of thing that people still technically live with. It's that metahumans are a thing that people live with, that metahumans are a common thing, that
metahumans have basically been a thing since all of civilization has been a thing for them.
And the fact that Superman's been around for 3 years, he's had time to get used to this. People have had time to get used to him. It creates this idea that we're living in a fully fleshed out world. And the fact that we get little Easter eggs and cameos to the idea that there are more and more superheroes out there. It just really, really, really works. And one of the things that grounds the movie is the fact that we get to see Smallville. We get to see Ma and Pa Kent. And despite what Twitter users who don't seem to understand why the tornado scene in Man of Steel didn't work the way they wanted to, a scene with Pa Kent and Clark perfectly encapsulates the emotional arcs of Superman and the way that he feels that he needs to be. It shows the dual identity being properly motivated.
And it's just kind of an insane thing to witness that it took this long to get to this idea of it. And it's all about just kind of the kindness of the character of Superman, about how he feels about this way he has been depicting himself, and how one little thing can change everything.
It's just...
Yeah.
I just can't really say anymore. This is just...
But real quick, we should probably mention the Justice Gang. Nathan Fillion, Isabella Merced, Eddie Gathegi, and Anthony Carrigan.
Yeah, it's really great to see a version of the Justice League getting formed already off screen, but the implication that they've been around a while and everybody just kind of showing that maybe these people are not the best kind of superheroes. Maybe they're just kind of cocky douchebags who are like, we need to be as apolitical as possible, but Superman is the one who's like, no, if there's someone I need to help, I'm going to help them. All these people who are just out there being like, what, do you want to watch Superman save cats out of trees? Yes! That's literally what people have been saying. We saw Superman ignore the needs of people around him in favor of punching the bad guy, when Superman's whole deal is he is the guy who won't let a single person die if he can help it.
Because we have a Superman who will tear through a building or let up an entire plane if people die, and that Superman sucks because his name is Homelander.
He's literally the villain of his franchise. And yet, you want Superman to be like that? Superman? This is an interpretation that truly understands Superman. And if you really think that we're bashing Zack Snyder as a person, if you think we're bashing Zack Snyder's entire filmography, if you think we're bashing Man of Steel into the ground just because we think that this is a better interpretation, no! Zack Snyder and James Gunn are friends, have been for a long time, and I know the fact that I'm saying that is not going to get to anyone, because it's been pointed out again and again and again, and these people don't care. They don't care at all. All they want is for somebody to think their dark and edgy take on characters who are not supposed to be dark and edgy is just the only version of anything that gets made. They are mad that comic books didn't grow up with them. They grew up with comic books, but comic books have stayed the same. And they're just mad that they have to watch colorful superheroes do the right thing. And that's what this is about. That's what this movie is about. That's what these characters are about. And if this is the mission statement for the DC Universe, then I think it's in good hands.
Yeah.
If there's no better proof of that than the fact that when John Murphy and David Fleming had the opportunity to write their own Superman theme, they took the route of making the John Williams theme more in their style, and it is used perfectly. Their score is perfect. These characters are perfect. It's shot perfectly. It looks every frame like a classic comic book. And I could not be happier with the outcome.
Yeah.
So, that being said, it looks like the summer of 2 cakes has begun. So, be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave in the comments what you may or may not have thought of Superman 2025, and don't forget to tune in next time when it's fantastic.
Wait, say that again.
No! I'm more than a bird, I'm more than a plane, I'm a bird plane, a motherfucking bird plane.
How did I know you would do that?
I just wanted to see what you were going to do, so let's do it for real this time.